about 20 years ago, a case occurred in South Korea. It was one of the most famous cases in the history of all of Korea. What made this case one of the most famous cases in this way is that the details that happened in this case often did not happen in any case other than this case, and only because it is the first and most important detail in the case. Is there a girl who was raped by 44 guys? No, it's not like your brain said. They didn't rape her once, twice, or even 10 times. This girl, the 44 young men continued to rape her for a whole year, and I know very well that the issue is very difficult for you to absorb and understand. But I am sorry to tell you that the details that I will tell you after that are much more difficult than what I told you, and before that, I will not go into details and smeared details. Prepare me your delicious drink. Also, eat sweet food like you and start new dishes, and let us get back together 20 years ago. We know who this girl is, what happened to her, and what led her to what happened. This was in the beginning of South Korea in the year 2003. The beautiful girl, Choi, was 14 years old, a middle school student. Unfortunately, her childhood was not the best thing at all. Her mother separated from her. Her father when she was 7 years old, but because her father was addicted to alcohol and drinking, and he also beat and insulted her every day. So she was released and her mind was free from this worry. Unfortunately, her mother left them completely and no longer asked about her or her sisters. This teacher, their father, often did not hug him when he was young, so this contract fell on the children, day and night, beating and insulting them, and unfortunately, as we know, who does not find love and kindness in his family's home? Anyone who is contagious has something sweet in his neck, and unfortunately this is what happened to me. Choi, the heroine of our case today, Choi, has already begun to look for someone she loves and trusts, but outside the house, at a time when technology is beginning to appear. Those from my generation and the generation before me will still know the chat rooms that were on Yahoo and Hotmail, and there in these rooms, Choi is getting to know. Bless the owner of the Sunna, who is a high school student in the city of Miriang. This is a country about an hour away from the country where I live. She grills stories and novels for a month, in the second, in the third, until he didn't suggest to her that they should meet. We're old enough, and we've got a while to get to know each other behind the screens, so let's meet and get to know each other more. Unfortunately, she loved him, was impressed by his words, and became very attached to him. She also had a desire to go to the country he constantly talks about, and because there is no one to tell her. Where were you going and coming from? So she agreed and traveled to Miriang to see Park. When she arrived, she noticed that she was in a somewhat empty place, and most likely there was no one around her. Suddenly, she found Park appearing, but the strange thing was that Park did not come alone. He came and brought with him a group of friends to grill. The first time she saw them, she was surprised, and she is still going to ask who they are. She found an iron stick that landed on her brain. At that time, she was unconscious. She was paralyzed by these young men. As soon as the girl fell asleep, she said hello, Bella. They took her to a room in a hotel where they were staying. Someone would ask me two very important questions. How did they book into a hotel when they were under the legal age, and how did they book into a hotel while checking in with a girl who was paralyzed and passed out? I tell you, dear partner, that it is normal in any country that you will find cheap places, because the owner of the hotel loves I pay more money than normal, and we don't see, we don't hear, we don't speak. The important thing is that the group of beautiful young people was the number of them. In the beginning there were 13 young men, headed by their president, and he blessed them. What do they mean? Their number was 13 in the beginning. Will they increase after that or what? And you probably forgot. In the beginning, I told you how many they had. So, I want you to be patient. This gang, more precisely, they started attacking. one person at a time. Each one of them began to take his turn for about 10 times, while the rest stood and filmed, whether with cameras or mobile phones. The first thing that happened was that the girl was beyond satisfied with what they had done to her. A group of people, and their boss became the one who was supposed to be her lover, and the one whose name was Park, said to her, "I want you. Just open your mouth and you will find all these videos at your father's house." "Oh, it's true, I forgot to tell you, I brought a number. Your father and I also got your home number. Take care, this is not your father, but this is me. I will spread this word to all your friends and also on the internet. I just want you to think about talking and take care of me from this point on. But the matter is that the matter does not end with me at any time. I will want you at any time you come, and I will do something about you." The biggest disaster is that this group of gangs used to bring their beloved girls. They stand and watch. They also filmed with them for 11 continuous months. He blessed him with it. New friends come every time, and the number of them each time ranges from 7 to 10 people, and each one assaults her about 10 times, and each time in a different area. An old bus stop, cheap motels, the same as the repairs he has, and something extremely cheap, and the matter has also not stopped. During the sexual assault, they would also steal any money she had on her, even if it was coming and she had any gold or any possessions, whatever they were. They were trying to bring this in. They even forced her to bring her younger sister, who was 13 years old, and also her cousin and others. They were not assaulting them, but they were stealing, torturing, and beating them as long as they were there and remained. The harm remained from every aspect of her father's house, with his drunkenness and wastefulness, and his lack of good manners towards her day and night. And the horns outside are filthy and threatening. The girl, for almost a whole year, has been subjected to blackmail, threats, and a hammer, just so she doesn't expose herself to anyone. One day her aunt noticed the change in him. "She is not my brother's daughter," and she started talking to her and trying to understand from her what caused this change that happened to her. Because of so much guilt, she finally makes the decision and tells her aunt every time her aunt needs something. Of course she gets terrified. From what I heard, she immediately called her mother, and of course, as you know, her father was living in the important club. On November 25, 2004, Shui's mother called the police and informed him of everything, and they in turn made a medical report and promised her that the matter would remain completely confidential. And of course this was to preserve the girl's reputation. It was nice. This is what? No, it is not nice. Because some of these men will start to turn the tide on the girl herself, and they began to accuse her of wearing sexy clothes and making seductive movements in order to convince these young men that they are doing this to her, and after 12 days had passed after submitting the medical report, they launched the mass arrest campaign and arrested no less than 120 young men from this place. And in the end, these 120 lined up over only 44 young men. 35 of them were young men who were enrolled in respectable secondary schools, and after that they made a press release in which they talked about their dedication to solving the case. And let me tell you how much they were actually merciful to the girl, and how much they really devoted themselves to solving the case. This is the first thing. They were promising to say that the one who will investigate her is a woman's officer, but Choi is surprised by a police team consisting of 4 officers. His men, sir, don't love you. He has a strong group of men. Women, I mean, the police are the protectors of the nation. Okay, come on, let me show you what these protectors of the nation did. The first thing the protectors of the nation did was that they imposed on her every day that she meet these 44 animals to get to know them. Okay, Bicho, what is normal? I hope you will get to know them. How can your heart not be so heavy? I will say that. No, sir, because the matter is strong. It was extremely dirty. She was supposed to stay in a room on one side. There is a mirror, and on the other side there is a revealing shade, so you can see them from behind that shade. But the mother-in-law of the country, my beloved ones, did not do that and let her face him every day, eye to eye, and the girl was consulting them one by one, with tears streaming down her face, and not only that, no. They started asking her who was the first one. He started with you and sat with you for as long as you enjoyed it or how you felt. We want you to unpack this and tell us all the details. Even one of the distinguished policemen told you, this girl is from me in this area. She has brought us this disgrace. I am afraid for my daughter if she goes out into the street at any time. Other than the gang's family, they were also working on the girl. Terrible pressure and threats day and night. And their threats were based on the fact that their children are in fine schools and that you were the one who slandered them, and that the matter was not. They stopped at that. But they started to appear in television interviews and press recordings and speak with the utmost arrogance that they did not feel any anger or sadness for the girl or even for her family, and they thought that they were supposed to raise their daughters how to know how to behave properly. That they were negligent parents and children. They are supposed to teach their daughters that if they cannot resist rape, they will enjoy it, because once we finish the case, this disease will bring us this disease. A group of officers entered a bar there known as karaoke, and there they met a girl from the bartenders who looked a little like Chai, and at that time, all the lack of good manners became apparent. And with the utmost mockery and depravity in the world, they began to talk about Chai, and what a selfish person she is. Shame. But when this girl heard these words, she did not hesitate and went to Chai's family and told them all the words she heard. And from here, there was a revolution against the police, and there was a great deal of anger from the people. They accused the police of racism and bias toward rapists just because they were just men like them. Civilian groups and committees like women's rights committees in the world all turned against the police. In order for the world to calm down a little, they dismissed 9 of this police team, which was made up of 13 policemen, and replaced him with a team new to the women's police, and in order to tell her and her sister, her story was known to the whole people beautiful media because of the most beautiful police. Life for them in Ulsan became very difficult and almost impossible. In January of 2005, she, her sister, and her mother moved their lives to the capital, Seoul. And there she and her sister entered a hospital to be treated for the psychological shock they were exposed to. This is his doctor for a while, and she said that she had been in a hospital for a long time. She is very exposed to harm and neglected by everyone around her, and as a result this happened to her serious complications and very severe depression. She also said that Choi tried to commit suicide more than once, but we saved her. The important thing is that Choi was released from this hospital after 1 month, and of course this is not enough time at all. She made Choi try to commit suicide again more than once, and this is what made her mother admit her to treatment against her will. The psychiatric ward was closed, and at this time, finally, His Excellency the Pasha, her father and his family, began to visit her, and of course, you were happy, you finally said. The mountain started to feel sorry for his blood and went to see his daughter, but no, this man wasn't going to check on her or anything. The broken man called her father was going to let her go through a settlement with the family's family so that they would take some money in return. Unfortunately, he was playing a very dirty game with her, and her father was able to convince her that she was. Unfortunately, Chuya believed her father or was afraid of him. And she actually moved on in this settlement. They took 50 million Korean won in return, equivalent to $36,000, which was of course a very good number at the time. But her father still insisted on being an imperfect man, and he divided the 15 million of them, with whom he paid the debts he owed and the disgust he was doing. And it seems that he was distributing the rest to his family. His beloved, Chui, and her sister left the birthplace without humus, Chui, after she received this huge shock from her father. Her mother took custody of her and her sister, and they continued their life together in Seoul, But God does not leave many of his servants behind. After a short period, he comes to spread the news of her father's death after she died with an excessive dose of alcohol, which caused blood poisoning, and I see your heart dancing for me. And I am right with you, frankly, but I want to surprise you and say very much. And it was a shock for her mother. But she soon filed a complaint at the center. The police of Miriang took this to the Supreme Court and accused the police of everything they did to her daughter from the first investigation until today, which unfortunately is because of what they did to her daughters until today. They are unable to complete their education or even find any work, and accordingly, the court ruled for them to pay compensation of 30 million Korean won for each of their daughters and 10 million for their mother alone.